it's Jen. Welcome back to Bookish Blonde. Today we are going to talk about books with green covers. It's March and I just thought it would be a fun way to talk about some books that are on my shelves that I've read and loved and recommend to all of you, and also some books that I have not read yet but I'm excited to dive into at some point. Okay, so let's get started. The first one I want to talk about is Weyward by Emilia Hart. This is such a stunning cover. It was, I would say, probably one of my favorite covers last year. I read this last summer in June, and it was so good. This was a 5-star read. Most of these that I read, I believe, are 5 stars. But this one's a debut novel, and I never would have guessed it. It was the writing and the attention to detail was top-notch. We are following 3 different timelines, and all of the timelines were equally entertaining. It didn't matter which timeline I was in. I was fully engrossed in what was going on. You're gonna get a witchy story with this one. So you're following Kate from 2019, and she is fleeing London, fleeing an abusive partner, and going to a cottage that she's inherited from her great aunt, I believe. 1619, you're following Alpha, who is awaiting trial for the murder of a local farmer who was stampeded to death by his herd. And they basically think she's a witch, and so she's awaiting trial for that. And then 1942, we're following Violet, and her timeline takes place in the middle of World War II. And all of these storylines come together in such an amazing, jaw-dropping way. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. So again, if you want to read something with green on the cover for March, this is a high recommend for me. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. She is a queen of suspense. Still waiting for her to come up with another book, you guys. Like, it's been so many years. I hope she's writing something. I think that would shock everyone if she came out with a new book. So this one is from 2006. I read it so long ago, so I'm just going to kind of reread the synopsis to make sure I don't give any spoilers away, because it's been so long since I read it. I worried I might drop the ball there. It was another 5-star for me. It's a fairly short book, actually. It's only 252 pages, so, or at least this copy is. So it's a pretty short book. But we're following reporter Camille Preaker, and she has to go back to her hometown, which I love that trope of going back to your hometown, because there are 2 teens that were murdered in our hometown. She just came out of like a psych hospital stay, I believe, and she has a troubling past with her mother. She hasn't talked to her mother, who's neurotic and a hypochondriac, or her half-sister for years. So she goes back home to kind of do the story on these missing girls, or these murdered girls. They're not missing, they're murdered. And so she goes back and she has to deal with her own demons. She has to unravel a psychological puzzle of her own past if she wants to survive this homecoming. So this is one that I would love to reread someday. I plan on rereading. Third book is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a special edition. It's beautiful. It's got these great decorative pages, sprayed edges. The end pages are gorgeous. And again, look at this key, this dark green. I love dark green. It's one of my favorite colors. It's got the ribbon. Really, really pretty edition. So this is a trilogy. I've only read the first one. I loved it. It's young adult. You're going to get mystery, clues, riddles. You're following brothers with a fortune, and I said Avery? Yeah, Avery, this girl who is barely surviving high school. She wants to get a scholarship to get out of her hometown. And so her whole life changes when billionaire Tobias Hawthorne dies and leaves her his whole fortune. So as you can imagine, she goes back, and the one catch is to get this fortune, she has to live there for a year. And no one's really happy that she's there. So you unravel the mystery. This is something that I need to pick back up with book 2. But here's another green cover recommendation. This one is The Child Finder. I don't hear a lot of people talk about this book. Rene Denfeld. I really enjoyed this. I don't know if it's for everyone, and obviously there's some blues on there too. But again, we got that dark green on the naked cover. And this is another one I really enjoyed, read years ago. But you're following Madison Culver, and she disappears in Oregon when her family was picking out a Christmas tree. And if she survived, she would be 8 years old now. So desperate to find their daughter, the Culvers turn to Naomi, who's a private investigator with an uncanny talent for locating the lost and the missing. So she's known as the Child Finder, hence the title. Naomi's methodical search takes her deep into the icy, mysterious forest of the Pacific Northwest and into her own fragmented past. She understands children like Madison because once upon a time, she too was a lost girl. So you go on a search for this girl. I don't want to give up too much, but this one it surprised me. I felt like I hadn't read anything like this before. And again, it wasn't too long of a book. About 250 pages. I couldn't put it down when I read it. This is a great one. All right, we have Still Missing by Chevy Stevens. I have read a lot by her. There's one that this is one of her recent ones, The Night Road or something like that. That one was a huge disappointment for me. It didn't even feel like the same author, but everything else I've read by her has been 4 or 5 stars. She's a quick read. You definitely don't want to put her books down. We got some short chapters, suspense, cliffhangers, twists, all the things I love in a good thriller. In this one, we are following Annie O'Sullivan, and she is 32 years old. She's a realtor. She is at an open house, which isn't having really a great turnout. Long story short, she gets abducted from this open house. This story is interwoven with the year Annie spent captive in a remote mountain cabin, which unfolds through sessions with her psychiatrist. It is the second narrative recounting the nightmare that follows her escape, her struggle to piece her shattered life back together, the ongoing police investigation into the identity of her captor, and the disturbing sense that things are far from over. Still Missing is a shocking, visceral, brutal, and beautifully crafted novel about surviving the unsurvivable and living to bear witness. This is one I'd like to reread at some point. It's getting me excited to reread this one. This one I really enjoyed. Again, Chevy Stevens was an author I kind of found at my library with no recommendations, just picked one of them up, and I read, I think, everything that she's written, and I loved everything but one. So if you haven't checked out Chevy Stevens, this is a good one to get you started. All right, the last one that I've read that I want to talk about today is Hum If You Don't Know the Words by Bianca Marais. Looks like this. Great green cover. And this one I read again a long time ago, but it was so good. I love Bianca Marais' writing. I've read 2 by her, and they both were 5 stars. If you haven't checked her out, I would recommend it because I feel like her stories will connect with almost everybody in one way or another. So there's something for almost everyone to get out of her stories, and both books I read by her were enjoyable reading experiences. So in this one, we're looking at life under apartheid in South Africa, and we are following 2 alternating perspectives, both Beauty and Robin, and their stories interweave, and you're going to get a story that is filled with tension and emotion and a lot of heart. You're following Robin, who is a 9-year-old white girl living with her parents in 1970s Johannesburg. And in the same nation, but worlds apart, Beauty, I'm going to spell this or say this wrong. It's Xosa. Not sure how to say that. But Beauty is a woman living in a rural village who's struggling to raise her children alone. The 2 are brought together by the Soweto Uprising, a protest by Black students that ignites racial conflict and leaves Robin's parents dead and Beauty's daughter missing. In the aftermath, Beauty is hired to care for Robin, and the 2 forge a bond through their deep personal losses. So I'm gonna leave it at that because I don't want to give any spoilers away, but this made me cry. This was a really great one too. All right, let's get going on the books that are on my shelves that I haven't read yet. So I'll tell you what these are about. I have a really pretty copy of Mrs. England by Stacy Halls. This is a UK edition, but it's just so beautiful. The gold foiling, the end pages. I'll show this book off because I think this is really, really pretty. So it's just got that dark green. We have the gold foiling here, and then the end pages look like that. Beautiful illustration. So that's what the book looks like, and you even have like some pretty little sketches inside the book. So yeah, it's a beautiful book. Mrs. England is a book that takes place in 1904. You are following newly graduated nurse Ruby May. She takes a position looking after the children of Charles and Lillian England, a wealthy couple with a powerful dynasty of mill owners. She hopes it will be the fresh starts that she needs. But as she adapts to life at the isolated Hardcastle house, it becomes clear that there is something not quite right about the beautiful and mysterious Mrs. England. Distant and withdrawn, Lillian shows little interest in her children or her charming husband and is far from the angel of the house that Ruby was expecting. As the warm, vivacious Charles welcomes Ruby into the family, a series of strange events forces her to question everything that she thought she knew. Ostracized by the servants and feeling increasingly uneasy when her sister stops writing with news from home, Ruby must face her demons in order to prevent history from repeating itself. After all, there is no such thing as the perfect family, and she should know. So this one might be a little bit more of a slow burn from what I've kind of heard, but I really liked, I read The Familiars, not The Foundling. I read The Familiars by her and really enjoyed that, and that was a witchy type book. All right, so that's Mrs. England. Next one even has green in the title, Greenwood by Michael Christie. This one was recommended by someone at one of the BookTube Besties retreats, I think from last summer. I picked myself up a bargain copy. It's a little worn, but it was on Pango. It was just a couple dollars. I honestly don't even know what this one's about, but it came so highly recommended, and when I saw it for so cheap, I said, sold. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this, but this is, let's see, it's 2038, and Jake Greenwood is a storyteller and a liar, an overqualified tour guide babysitting ultra-rich vacationers in one of the world's last remaining forests. It's 2008, and Liam Greenwood is a carpenter, sprawled on his back after a workplace fall, calling out from the concrete floor of an empty mansion. It's 1974, and Willow Greenwood is out of jail, free from being locked up for one of her endless series of environmental protests, attempts at atonement for the sins of her father's one vast and violent timber empire. It's 1934, and Everett Greenwood is alone, as usual, in his maple syrup camp, when he hears the cries of an abandoned infant and gets tangled up in the web of a crime, secrets, and betrayal that will cling to his family for decades. And throughout, there are trees, a steady, silent pulse thrumming beneath Michael Christie's effortless sentences, working as a guided metaphor for withering, weathering, and survival. A shining, intricate clockwork of a novel. Greenwood is a rain-soaked and sun-dappled story of the bonds and breaking points of money and love, wood and blood, and the hopeful, impossible task of growing toward the light. This is a magnificent generational saga that charts a family's rise and fall, its secrets, and its inherited crimes from one of Canada's most acclaimed novelists. So, yeah, so someone recommended it, and I picked it up. So that's Greenwood. This one is Lay Your Body Down by Amy Suter Clark. This is the author of Girl 11, which I read, I think, last year, and really enjoyed it. It was dark, it was twisty, it was a thriller, and I enjoyed that one. So when I heard that she was coming up with another book, it just was on my radar. I haven't read it yet, but I did pick it up. Samantha Downing even talks about this being an emotionally charged and unnerving thriller, dangerous secrets, complex characters, and more than one oh my god moment. You won't see the twist coming. So I love a book that can surprise me. And in this one, it says, after Dell Walker fled her small hometown and its cult-like church, she vowed to never return. The man she loved, Lars, left her to marry the local golden girl, Eve, and their romance is now the focus of Eve's viral blog, espousing the pastor's conservative philosophy about women and marriage. But 6 years later, Lars is suddenly killed, and she's convinced it couldn't have been an accident. When Dell returns to her hometown for the funeral, she discovers the now mega church and the insidious patriarchal teachings of Pastor Rick Franklin has grown not only in size but in influence. Eve was clearly discontented in her marriage despite the carefully constructed noble wife positivity of her blog post, and Dell knows better than anyone just how far she will go to get what she wants. Dell is determined to cut through the church's lies and corruption to find out who killed Lars, even if it means confronting the religious trauma she's spent years trying to bury. This sounds so great. I can't wait to read this one. I love doing videos like this because it really, I have all these gorgeous books waiting to be read, right? And just kind of getting a topic like green books with green covers just really gets me to look at my shelves in a little different way, and it reminds me of my excitements of some books that have been sitting there for a while. So helps me not want to go book shopping, right? I have so many I can read on my shelf. So that's a goal this year, is to just continue to try to read down my own TBR because they're all on my shelves because I was excited about them at one point. Okay, next one. Tana French, The Searcher. I have only read one book by Tana French and I didn't love it. It was in her, what's her popular series? Oh, she has a detective series, and I read one by her and I didn't love it, but I at the time didn't realize it was a series. I think it was, yes, I read The Likeness, and I think I read it out of order, and it was okay. It was very slow burn for me, and I like more of a quicker burn with my thrillers. But this one is a standalone. It takes place in an Irish village. I love books that take place in Ireland. I'm not Irish. I just enjoy books that take place in Ireland. I'm not sure what that's about. But in this one, it's a spellbinding, propulsive new novel from the best-selling mystery writer who is in a class by herself. That was the New York Times that said that. So we're following Cal Hooper, thought a fixer-upper in a remote Irish village would be the perfect escape. After 25 years in the Chicago police force and a bruising divorce, he just wants to build a new life in a pretty spot with a good pub where nothing much happens. But then a local kid comes looking for help. Trey, Reddy's brother, has gone missing, and no one, least of all the police, seem to care. Cal wants nothing to do with any kind of investigation, but somehow he can't make himself walk away. Against his will, he discovers that even the most idyllic small town, secrets lie hidden, people aren't always who they seem, and trouble can come calling at the door. So this sounds really good. I wanted to give Tana French another try because so many people love her. So that's another green one on my shelves that I have. All right, two more. I'm sure I have more on my shelves, but I picked 6 and 6. So this video wasn't a million hours long. Okay, next one. Oh, so beautiful. Dragon Springs Road by Janie Chang. Such a pretty cover. Such a beautiful cover. This one, it says, the night I dreamed that I had wandered out to Dragon Springs Road all on my own when a dreadful knowledge seized me that my mother had gone away and never to return. So in 1908, we are following Gillian. She's 7 years old when she's abandoned in a courtyard of a once lavish estate near Shanghai. Gillian is Eurasian and faces a lifetime of contempt from both the Chinese and the Europeans. Without her mother's protection, she can survive only if the estate's new owners, the Yang family, agree to take her in. Ling finds allies in Anjuin, the eldest Yang daughter, and Fox, an animal spirit who has lived in the haunted courtyard for centuries. But Ling's life as the Yang's bondservant changes unexpectedly when she befriends a young English girl who then mysteriously vanishes. Always hopeful of finding her long-lost mother, Ling grows into womanhood during the tumultuous early years of the Chinese Republic, guided by Fox and by her own strength of spirit, away from the shadows of her past. But she finds herself drawn into a murder she finds herself drawn into a murder, a relationship that jeopardized her friendship, and a forbidden affair that brings danger to the man she loves. So I need to start reading that one. Okay, the last one with Green on the cover that I haven't read. Now, this book I have heard people either love or hate it, so I'll be honest, that's why I want to read it. I feel like I'm missing out. I have to know which train I'm on. Which side am I on? Love or hate? And that is The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. Haven't read anything by Julia Bartz. Oh, look, there's another bookmark. In this one, it says, Alex has all but given up on her dreams of becoming a published author when she receives a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Attend an exclusive month-long writing retreat at the estate of feminist horror writer Rosa Vallo. Even the knowledge that Rene, her former best friend and current rival, is attending doesn't dampen her excitement. But when the attendees arrive, Rosa drops a bombshell. They must all complete an entire novel from scratch during the next month, and the author of the best one will receive a life-changing 7-figure publishing deal. Determined to win the seemingly impossible contest, Alex buckles down and tries to ignore the strange happenings at the estate, including Rosa's erratic behavior, Rene's cruel mind games, and the alleged haunting of the mansion itself. But when one of the writers vanishes during a snowstorm, Alex realizes that something very sinister is afoot. This is a claustrophobic and propulsive thriller exploring the dark side of female relationships and fame. This one I've heard is unputdownable, which, yes, please. I love books I can't put down. So, Writer's Retreat, Locked Room Mystery. I wish I would have read this in January because it's going to be springtime here and this one takes place in the winter, but that's okay. So yeah, so this is another one that sounds really great. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for stopping by. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed my video. I hope these gave you some good ideas for maybe some new books maybe you haven't heard of, or maybe you have them on your shelves and it encourages you to pick them up sooner rather than later. Happy March and enjoy. Thank you and happy reading. See you guys soon. Bye.